Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. The constitutional right to protest isn't terrorism. A landmark order today by the Delhi High Court which gives bail to 3 students charged under the tough Anti-Terror Act. The court also warns that frivolous use of the UAPA will undermine the purpose and intent of Parliament when it cleared this act. India's daily cases are down to 60,000 plus. The positivity rate also continues to be below 4%. Senior doctors warn that the third wave will come. However, don't be complacent. But look at these visuals in this West Uttar Pradesh market. Crowds are out shopping. Corona has gone. Home Minister Amit Shah begins a series of meetings with BJP MPs. He meets with over 20 MPs this weekend. The meetings before an expected cabinet expansion or reshuffle soon. The mystery of missing BJP MLAs and workers in Bengal. This as we want to come back. Public announcements are made by BJP workers in the Trinamool in some areas. The BJP claims that our workers are being targeted by the Trinamool. Well, what's going up? A 60% rise in mustard oil prices. Our series looking at the inflation index as it's at a record high. Meanwhile, today the markets are up, but Adani shares are still down despite a clarification they had done on foreign investor funds in their shares. And the NDTV exclusive, Sachin Tendulkar says he's dressed in blue already for that big World Test Championship final. Our lead story tonight. This is a landmark order by the Delhi High Court, which is really in a sense an example for high courts across the country. The High Court, while giving bail to 3 students who had been arrested by the Delhi police and charged under the tough Anti-Terror Act, the UAPA, where the Delhi High Court said today in giving them bail that the constitutionally guaranteed right to protest is not terrorism. You cannot blur the lines with terrorist activity. They also warned the police that frivolous use of the Anti-Terror Act by using these kind of incidents under it. The Delhi police had charged these students with provocative speeches and WhatsApp groups and blocking roads. They said it's a constitutional right to protest, and using this as claiming this as terror acts actually undermines the intent and purpose of Parliament when they passed the tough Anti-Terror Act. This is a major embarrassment as well for the Delhi police, as their case has been virtually thrown out by the Delhi High Court.
3 students, Devangana Kalita, Natasha Narwal and Asif Iqbal Tanha, in their 20s and 30s, in Delhi's Tihar jail for over a year, a time when Natasha lost her father and only surviving parent to COVID, given bail only to perform his last rites. 2 of them, young women studying at JNU and part of a group which campaigns for campus freedoms. The third, a young man from Jamia Millia, charged by the police under the tough anti-terror law for allegedly masterminding violence during last year's Delhi riots, in which over 50 people died. Today, the Delhi High Court, in 3 separate orders, granted all 3 of them bail and importantly laid out a roadmap. The right to protest guaranteed under the Constitution is not terrorist activity. The court said it seems that in its anxiety to suppress dissent in the mind of the state, the line between constitutionally guaranteed right to protest and terrorist activity seems to be getting somewhat blurred. If this mindset gains traction, it would be a sad day for democracy.
Now, this is what this judgment puts on record very clearly, that this is not an act of terrorism because nobody is attacking the sovereignty of India. You can't keep these people in jail for indefinite periods of time. And that is why the court grants them bail today.
The court said that the police charges are at worst evidence that the accused took part in organizing protests, but there was no evidence that they incited violence or committed any terrorist acts as understood in the anti-terror law, the UAPA, warning against what it called the frivolous use of this tough act. The court said that foisting extremely grave and serious penal provisions engrafted in sections 15, 17 and 18 of UAPA frivolously upon people would undermine the intent and purpose of Parliament in enacting a law that is meant to address threats to the very existence of our nation. Wanton use of serious penal provisions would only trivialize them. Freedom after a year on charges the Delhi High Court has questioned the very basis of, for their families, it is a time that can never be returned, especially since a father couldn't see his daughter before his death.
हमारे लॉयर्स कह रहे थे कि हम ट्राई करेंगे कि जज सुन ले फ्राइडे संडे की इस केस को लेकर, जो कि नहीं हुआ। नताशा जेल से हमारी वीडियो कॉल का होता है 14 डेज या समथिंग, तो वो भी बंद है। तो जब हॉस्पिटलाइज कराया तो मेरे दिमाग में बस यही था कि एक बार तो कॉल करा दें कि कुछ भी हो सकता है।
It felt like this whole last year has felt like one nightmare that has developed into a worse nightmare instead of like ending. The notion that Devangana and Natasha have done the things that they've been accused of doing is just absurd.
Delhi High Court has also said that foundation of our nation cannot be shaken up by the protest by college students. UAPA is not to be used for usual offences. In New Delhi with Manu Nair, Saurabh Shukla for NDTV.
Time that can never be given back, and a young student activist there who lost her father while she was in jail for over a year waiting for a bail hearing. Moving to the other big headline, well, good news from the COVID numbers. Today we are less than 1 lakh daily cases for the 8th day, but we're actually much less. We're at just above 60,000 cases, around 14% in the last 24 hours. Deaths also down by 30%. So again, that's good news that deaths are reducing. This as tests are also going up. And our positivity rate is now 3.45%, less than 4%, and down by over 1%. So again, good news, and vaccinations are up 161%. We're at 39 lakhs. Those are great numbers. In fact, those are our highest vaccination numbers in over a month. But remember that this is on a low base because Sunday vaccination, many centers were closed. So across the country, various drives out to get more and more people out for vaccinations. In Hyderabad now, corporates are pitching in to get underprivileged people in Hyderabad to be vaccinated.
It was a vaccine day out for 5,000 residents of Hyderabad who were taken to the vaccine center, given meals, a drink and a vaccine shot, and sent home safe and hassle-free.
अच्छा लग रहा है वैक्सीन लेने से, कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है ना, अच्छा है ना वैक्सीन, तो इसलिए ले लिए। पूरे दिन देखभाल किया, टिफिन दिया, वाटर बॉटल दिए, अच्छे से खाना खिलाए, खाना खाने के बाद में आके इंजेक्शन लो बोलकर बोल।
Among those mobilized by Hyderabad police were LGBT and transgender persons, rag pickers, beggars, workers and slum dwellers, even those without Aadhaar cards.
Because normally transgender people are not entertained to enter into the formal healthcare setup. Even in the government hospitals, there is a lot of stigma and discrimination. So this will help to mobilize our people for vaccinations particularly.
మా ట్రాన్స్జెండర్, నా పేరు జాస్మిన్. మా ట్రాన్స్జెండర్స్ వాళ్ళందరికీ ఆధార్ కార్డ్స్ కానీ గుర్తింపు కార్డులు కానీ ఉండవు. అలాంటి టైంలో మాకు ఈ మెగా వైరస్ పెట్టిన టైంలో మేడ్చల్ డిస్ట్రిక్ట్ కలెక్టర్ గారితో ఎంఎస్ఐ వాళ్ళు కానీ రచన కానీ.
What made the mega vaccine drive unique was the public-private partnership, with the government mobilizing people and corporates paying for it.
People who are all not, in fact, they do not have anybody like beggars. Those are all the primary persons or human beings who are affected, and there may be a spreading to the society. But until this time, nobody has been taken care of their vaccination program.
A huge line of people who have been mobilized for this mega vaccine drive in Hyderabad. While it is impressive that 5,000 underprivileged people are being mobilized as part of this drive, but what is worrying is, no, there is no social distancing here. In Hyderabad with camera person Nagraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.
Well, no social distancing there, but at least again the vaccines and wearing masks. Look at what's happening in this western Uttar Pradesh market in Moradabad. These huge crowds out there, some wearing masks, most of them not. So remember, Uttar Pradesh at one time had very high cases, though of course the latest numbers, the numbers seem very down, though testing is an issue here in Uttar Pradesh. But just look at the numbers out in this market, and you're seeing crowds also in parts of Delhi and many other parts of India as India has begun to open up. And noted surgeon Dr. Devi Prasad Shetty, who heads the expert COVID panel set up by the Karnataka government to prepare for the third wave, has warned that the third wave is coming. It could be here by September. We have to be prepared for it, and throwing caution to the winds, like those pictures we just saw in Moradabad, are just going to make it worse.
I think only thing what we can do is to prepare ourselves for the third wave, which could happen in September, October or next year, and also prepare ourselves that it will be as bad or at least 30% worse than the second wave, because we should be prepared more for the worst scenario.
Let's move now to other news. Well, Home Minister Amit Shah's series of meetings with BJP MPs from different states. Akhilesh has more, because Akhilesh, of course, everything the Home Minister or the BJP President, the Prime Minister are doing now is being analysed as politics now seems back on the agenda.
Absolutely. There are a series of meetings which are taking place, Sonia. In fact, Prime Minister had held 5 meetings with his ministers, and each meeting lasting for around 5 hours. We've been told by the sources that there was informal discussion. Prime Minister was asking questions about the feedback they are getting from the people and also analyzing the performance of these ministers. And on the other hand, Home Minister Amit Shah, he had a meeting with the BJP MPs from states like Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan and some other states, and also some ministers were present. And the interaction was mainly about the feedback. And all this exercise is being linked to the possible cabinet expansion, which is scheduled, and it's possible that in the coming days it can happen. There are 28 vacancies in the Modi cabinet, and it's likely to be filled, especially keeping in mind the coming assembly elections in 5 states.
Right, Akhilesh, thanks so much for that quick update. Meanwhile, moving now, of course, to West Bengal, where after the BJP's defeat, many Trinamool workers who had deserted now have had a change of heart. Now, how do they actually come back? This now includes a unique method of public announcements by BJP workers saying they want to return to the Trinamool.
Unprecedented in politics anywhere in the world perhaps, Trinamool workers who joined BJP just before the elections now publicly declaring they made a mistake and want to return to mothership. Mukul Roy's Ghar Wapsi has sparked many such SOS, and BJP's big worry about elected leaders too. Missing MLAs at Shubhendu Adhikari's show of strength at Raj Bhavan have not helped. Of 74, only 50 showed up.
हम तो केवल 31 एमएलए को बोले थे, बाकी लोग भी आए, बोले हम भी आएंगे। 31 की बात थी हमारी, लेकिन 51 आ गए। ये तो पॉजिटिव है।
आप नहीं थे?
मैं एमएलए नहीं हूँ।
যে বিধায়করা গেছেন তাদের মধ্যে সব বিধায়ক গেছেন বলে আমার মনে হয় না। অনেক বিধায়কই যাননি, 51 জন গেছেন, তাহলে ধরে নেওয়া যেতে পারে যে 24 জন যাননি। তো বাকি 24 জন কেন গেলেন না সেটা ওরা একটু তদন্ত করুন।
At least 8 MLAs from districts across the state are on the party's list of probable exits, say BJP sources. And not just those who joined the BJP just before the elections. Of the 30 or so sitting MLAs, BJP did import, 18 got tickets and 5 won. The 13 who lost are being written off, like Rajiv Banerjee, lately seen meeting Trinamool leaders. As for the 15 or so imports who did not get poll tickets, most have already asked Trinamool for return tickets back home.
हम लोग का कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, आना जाना ये चलता है पॉलिटिक्स में। मैं भी टीएमसी छोड़ के बीजेपी में ज्वाइन किया, लेकिन मुकुल जी को अपने विधायक पद से रेजिग्नेशन देना चाहिए।
Many BJP leaders known to be close to Mukul Roy have denied plans to follow in his footsteps. Both the BJP and Trinamool are taking those denials with a pinch of salt. For the Trinamool, sweet revenge, a chance to clip the BJP's wings in Bengal before the Uttar Pradesh elections and of course 2024. With G.D. Shankar, Monideepa Banerjee, NDTV.
Well, political action, of course, for crucial assembly elections next year, both in Uttar Pradesh and Punjab. So today, huge protests outside the Punjab Chief Minister Amrinder Singh's house, led by Sukhbir Singh Badal of the Akalis, where he was detained as well after those huge protests we can see there. So again, we are back to political protests and rallies as if nothing ever happened. They were protesting, they said, against charges against the state's health minister and of scams in vaccine procurement. and COVID medical kits. The Congress has said that action has been taken. Moving from Punjab to Uttar Pradesh, where today 6 rebel MLAs of Mayawati's Bahujan Samaj Party met with Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav amid reports that they are likely to now switch to the Samajwadi Party before assembly elections next year. But these are MLAs who've anyway action has been taken against them and Mayawati already. So in that sense, it won't be a major blow for Mayawati. Moving to our special focus on NDTV, and that's what's affecting every Indian. The record inflation, and especially when it comes to retail inflation, which is at a high of 6 months. What's really been driving this inflation index has been the high edible oil prices, mustard oil alone going up by over 60%.
50-year-old Saroj, a BPL card holder in Haryana's Kaithal district, used to get 2 litres of mustard oil at 20 rupees a litre and 1 kg of salt at 6 rupees a kg from the PDS shop. Now the government has suspended the supply of mustard oil and salt and instead has decided to provide 250 rupees in the beneficiary's account.
250 रुपए में सरकार खरीद के दे दो ना 2 लीटर तेल सरकार का भी खरीद सकती है.
The government issued these orders last month, and the reason cited was that Haryana State Cooperative Supply and Marketing Federation Limited could not procure mustard at the minimum support price of 4,650 rupees per quintal, as prices of oilseed had climbed over 6,000 rupees a quintal. As for salt, the government says they can't get packing material.
मस्टर्ड अवेलेबल नहीं है जो सरसों जिससे तेल निकाला जाता है, तो इसलिए इस महीने अभी ये डिसाइड किया गया है कि उसकी जगह 250 रुपये प्रति कार्ड जो भी बेनिफिशियरीज हैं उनके खाते में डाल दिए जाएंगे.
But for BPL families, edible oil, a staple in the Indian kitchen, is now unaffordable. Edible oil prices have risen 60% in a year, according to Consumer Affairs Ministry data. Average cost of a litre of mustard oil rose to 170 in May compared to 120 a year ago. The government's decision to suspend the distribution of mustard oil and salt has drawn sharp criticism from the beneficiaries as well as the opposition party.
रसोई में रखी कढ़ाई में तड़का सरसों का तेल लगाएगा 250 रुपया नहीं. यदि इसके बाद भी सरसों के तेल की पूर्णतः बहाली यानी कि जो सरकारी दुकानों पर नहीं पहुंचता है तो हमें मजबूरन हाई कोर्ट का दरवाजा खटखटाना पड़ेगा.
सरकार अपनी जिम्मेवारी से पीछा छुड़वा रही है. जो सरसों का तेल इस्तेमाल करते हैं हर रोज हरियाणा के मेजॉरिटी लोग, उन गरीबों के पेट पर लात मार रही है.
The government has suspended it for the month of June, but beneficiaries are concerned since government has not clarified as to when the distribution of mustard and salt will resume. With Mohammad Ghazali, Joshua Chin for NDTV.
Well, inflation up and so are markets up, with the Sensex and Nifty once again closing at record highs, led by gains in banking shares. The Sensex up as much as 318 points, hitting an intraday high. The Nifty 50 index also touching an all-time high. But on the flip side, many Adani stocks didn't perform that well, though out of 6 stocks on the BSE, 2 were in the green, 4 still remained in the red. On the NSE as well, the stocks there were hit with about 5 out of 6 stocks negative. Now, this is despite the fact that the Adani Group has clarified that the media reports they say were not actually genuine. And they said that they're actually looking into why this was done to mislead investors. But as we can see, Adani stocks there hit for the second day running. An estimate says that they lost about 12,000 crores in market value today.